Hey, good morning. This goes out to all of OCC's middle and high school students, especially. But, if some of your family members, older or younger than you, or even some of your friends, if they run across the video, that's okay too. There's nothing very secretive about it. I just wanted to send a little bit of a video message specifically to those of you at OCC who are in 6th through 12th grade. Some of you are part of MP3 on Sunday mornings. Some may be a part of confirmation class or perhaps other things that are going on at OCC. Worship, Hope House, camp, whatever your connection. If you're in that age range, this video message goes out to you. Today is Friday, and for me, today is day 5 of pretty hardcore, what they call social distancing. I went to the grocery store on Monday morning. Other than walks in the park and so forth, I have not left my apartment since then. So it has really been several days now of really staying away from other people. And of course, since I live alone, it really is social distancing for me because I don't even have family or a roommate or whatever. So if you're feeling a little isolated, if you're feeling a little stir crazy, bored, maybe you've got a little bit of cabin fever, kind of the same feeling you get when maybe a snowstorm, a really bad one, shuts down the metro area for a couple days, and you just really want to get out and do stuff. Boy, I get it. I'm with you in that. And all I can say is that it's part of our civic duty, our social responsibility right now to just not be together in one physical place, at least at this time. So MP3, confirmation, all the things that we're accustomed to, for the time being, those are kind of on hold. Watch for further updates. Goodness knows at some point we'll resume. At some point, MP3 will be back. At some point, confirmation will be back. At some point, we'll have WCA activities to look forward to and other things. But for the time being, consider everything to just be on hold and stay tuned. You can kind of see that right here in my apartment, I've set up sort of our own little mini campfire scenario here. It's mini in a couple of senses. Number one, I'm not going to talk for nearly as long as a typical, 1 hour campfire at camp lasts. And secondly, of course, there's not nearly as much fire here with 3 candles on an end table than there is at a typical campfire or bonfire up at Mount Morris. But be that as it may, I thought it might be kind of nice to just light a few candles, create a little bit of an atmosphere here, and just have a chat with all of you. I'm really struck by the fact that it was just this past Sunday, like 6 days ago, 5 days ago, that a number of us were together in the youth room for MP3, and we were talking about a Bible passage from the 4th chapter of James in the New Testament. And I won't break out a Bible, even though one is right here, but I'll just kind of paraphrase because you'll remember the passage. We had a whole bunch of quotes about it. We talked extensively about the whole idea. The passage basically said, those of you that sort of confidently say, hey, tomorrow we're going to go to this particular town and we're going to do business there. We're going to stay a year in that town and we're going to make money. And the author of James says, what are you thinking? You don't know what tomorrow will bring. You don't know about the future. At one point, it says in that passage, what is your life? You are but a mist, sort of a vapor, like fog. You're here today, and a short time later, in the grand scheme of the universe, you're not. And so basically, the passage then sort of wraps up by saying, well, what you should be saying to yourself is, if the Lord wills, then I will do this or this, and I'll go here or there, and I'll engage in these activities and so forth. But everything about the future should be framed in our minds as, if the Lord wills, if it is God's will, because we're not in charge of the future. We have free choice. Our choices matter. Our choices affect things. But the idea that we can confidently say what's going to happen later today or tomorrow, much less next week, next month, a season or two from now, a year or two from now, we just don't know. The unexpected does happen. James said it. James understood this. Things do happen that we don't see coming. And for most of global society, we didn't see this coming. There were some scientists out there that warned us about this coronavirus, COVID-19. And there were some political figures that had some advance warning too, some leaders, not just in the U.S., but in other countries too. But, of the 7-point-something billion of us living on planet Earth, very, very, very few had any idea that this was happening. In fact, even this past Sunday, as we had MP3 on Sunday morning and confirmation class on Sunday afternoon, I would have never bet any money that we were going to have essentially a forced order from various governors around the country that things close down. Bars, restaurants, any non-essential businesses. In some states, hair salons and barber shops and all kinds of other things shut down. And that we are all basically under at least guidelines, if not outright orders, to basically stay home. I would have never bet that. Even 6 days ago, I would have never wagered that would happen. And yet, here we are. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, just as James said. So we can't confidently say, hey, tomorrow's going to look like this. Next week is going to look like this. Next month is going to look like this. We can't be confident of that at all. We just have to do the best we can to follow the guidance from our political leaders and our medical experts, try to keep ourselves safe and healthy, and try desperately to avoid unwittingly passing the virus along to someone else. Because, yeah, a lot of you watching this video are young and you're healthy, and statistically, the odds of you getting this virus and getting serious complications from it are pretty darn low. You're probably the safest group in society right now, the young and the healthy. But God forbid that you would sort of ignore the advice from our political leaders and our medical scientists, that you would go out and about and gather with friends, go to parties, meet up various places, interact face-to-face with groups, and then pass the virus along to your mom or your dad, your grandma or your grandpa, or a next-door neighbor. I mean, we all just have to be very careful, and we have to think not just about ourselves, but about what's best for everybody else, what's best for the greater good of society. So, another thing that struck me today is Jeff, at confirmation class this past Sunday, asked the group, what's the opposite of faith? I thought that was a great question for Jeff to pose. There's more than one good answer to that. Somebody in confirmation class said, well, I think the opposite of faith is doubt. That's a good answer. I think that's a very defensible answer. But there are others. Some have said the opposite of faith is fear. I think that's a pretty good answer too, because part of what our faith can do is take away or at least sort of dial down our sense of fear, because we are putting our trust in a God that loves us, a God that is everywhere all the time, a God that knows us better than we know ourselves, and a God whose love never fails. That's pretty amazing. But so, yes, fear is a good answer to Jeff's question. But actually, the answer that Jeff himself brought up to his own question is uncertainty. The idea that the opposite of faith is uncertainty. That the opposite of faith is this sort of nagging, troubling sense that we're adrift, or that there's nothing to hold on to, that there's nothing solid that we can grab hold of. And I think that's a pretty good answer too. There's a lot of uncertainty in the country and in society right now. And yes, I think we as people of faith have a bit of an advantage here, because we can still connect and be in touch with the creator of the universe through prayer and through meditation. We can connect with that supreme being, if you will, and that faith can at least address our sense of fear or uncertainty. But there's almost sort of a flip side to that coin, because I think another sort of opposite of faith is certainty. I mean, it doesn't take faith to know that 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't take faith to know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It doesn't take faith to know that gravity is good, that if I were to drop this coffee cup right now, it would fall. I don't need faith to tell me that. I do need my faith to tell me that better days are ahead. I can't know that with the same degree of certainty that I know that 2 + 2 = 4. It's unknowable from a scientific standpoint right now exactly what is going to happen in the future, when those brighter days are going to come. When will the virus basically be gone, or when will enough of the residents of planet Earth be exposed to it and develop herd immunity, and it basically becomes just like another flu? Years from now, maybe. But exactly how that's all going to happen, I don't know. So I think that we need to be aware of our own sense of uncertainty. And we also need to be aware that this is not a time when very much is certain. And somewhere in the middle of that, uncertainty and certainty, is faith. When we can't be scientifically certain, but when we don't want to give in to this sort of almost depressing feeling of uncertainty, well, in the middle of that continuum, there is your faith. There is your trust in a God that loves you, that loves us all. And that's where we are. So I want to just do a couple other little things here before I wrap up this video. I don't want to keep you too long here. But I do want to invite you to text me or email me, or message me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or something, and let me know your answers to one or two questions. And the questions I'd have for today are, I guess, number one, what are you feeling in just a word or two, when you woke up this morning and sort of got the dreams out of your head, whatever you were dreaming when you woke up, and your brain sort of re-clicks into awake mode, and you realize where you are, when you are, what's going on, and what's going on in the world. What did you feel at that moment? In just a word or two, how are you feeling? And then secondly, I'm really curious. This is just purely something that I'd be eager to hear about from you. Without asking you to write a big essay, just in a sentence or two, how are you liking or not this distance learning thing? Because I think for nearly all of you watching this video, you've at least had 2 or 3, if not 5 days of online school at this point. And that's a new thing, I think, for all of you. It's new for your teachers, and it's also new for you. And I'm just kind of curious how you think that's all going. So those 2 questions. What are you feeling in just a word or two? And then how are you experiencing distance learning or online learning in just a sentence or two? What's your first take on that? So in closing then, I'd like to kind of share with you a couple of things here. First, I got an email today that I really liked. One of the email lists that I subscribe to, kind of a Christian humor and devotion sort of a thing. It quotes here Proverbs 17:22, which says, among other things, "A joyful heart is good medicine." Maybe we all need to, kind of work on our sense of joy at this time and really focus on things to be grateful for, reasons to find joy in the day, even though our days are not normal lately. And then the email goes on to say this, things that are not canceled. Reading, not canceled. Some of you are saying, I don't like to read anyway. Maybe some of you do. Family, not canceled. Love, not canceled. Music, not canceled. Singing, not canceled. Laughing, not canceled. Sunsets, not canceled. And, yep, see this? Hope, not canceled. Hope is definitely not canceled. Also, I would add, being together is not canceled. Supporting one another is not canceled. Yeah, getting together in the same room is, for the time being, canceled. But good grief, I have never been more techie than I have been in these last 5 days, including producing this video, with something that I have never done prior to the last few days. Let's be thankful that this coronavirus thing is occurring in an age when we have all these tools. Just a quarter century ago or so, we didn't have all this stuff. I couldn't have been making this video. You couldn't have been watching it. We would have had to be calling each other, maybe on landlines or whatever. Thank goodness we have social media. Thank goodness we have broadband. Thank goodness we have YouTube and video feeds and so forth. Thank goodness we have old school email plus texting and on and on. We are still together. None of us are alone. And we can still reach out and support one another, even at this time when we can't reach out and literally shake each other's hands or give each other hugs. And that's so important to remember. Finally then, I guess I'll close with this prayer, which is a famous one. Some of you have heard it before. It's called the Serenity Prayer. It was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, who was a professor, theologian, author back in the World War II era and a little bit after that. He actually was a professor of the Reverend Dick Bookman, the founding pastor of OCC way back in the day. So here is the Serenity Prayer as written by Reinhold Niebuhr. God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. That idea of distinguishing, having the wisdom to distinguish between what we can change and what we can't, is pretty important right now. None of us individually can make the coronavirus go away. None of us can wave a magic wand and make that happen. But we can change some things, including our own behavior, social distancing, and so forth, to try to help our society get through this as quickly and in as healthy a condition as we possibly can. So, yes, that's a good thought. Distinguishing or knowing the difference between that which we can change and that which, alas, we can't. Well, that's going to do it for me this morning. I do certainly hope that you do whatever you can to cope, to still love one another, to still love the outdoors and nature, to get some exercise, to get good sleep, to even keep up on classwork online, to do all the things that you know help to make you a better person, help you to grow as a person, and to still do those things even though physically we are separated by space. Have a good rest of your Sunday and a good week to come. Take care.